Hello and welcome back to Sports Talk in the Burgh. I'm your host, Josh Woodman, and joining me today were the two best analysts we could scrounge up. On my left is Century Media's very own first gentleman, Cam Wickline, and on my right is a man who had the unfortunate pleasure of watching Pitt's loss to Virginia in person, Amir Keasley. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Let's get right into it. It's no secret the Steelers have been on a roll lately, and with their defeat of the Commanders this weekend, the six-time Super Bowl champs find themselves atop of the AFC North with a record of 7-2. Quarterback Russell Wilson is currently undefeated as a starter, and many have claimed the veteran QB is just what the Steelers have been longing for so many years. With all that being said, and with the Steelers mania filling the streets of downtown Pittsburgh, Amir, what do you think has clicked in this Steelers offense?
First off, I'm going to go with Mr. Unlimited. Mr. Unlimited, a.k.a. Russell Wilson, has brought this offense back to life. I feel like he's adding a spark that Justin Fields didn't have. I mean, I feel like his great play is opening up more aspects of the offense, like, the rushing game. They're averaging, about 152 yards per game after Russ took the helm. And same thing, they're 12th with points per game this year, and I think that's a huge upgrade. And also, one big thing that I like is that in the last 3 games, they have had 230 pass yards per game as an average. So I think that's a huge upgrade from what we saw last year and what we saw in the first half of the season.
See, Amir, I'm actually going to have to disagree with you in terms of why I think the offense has started to click. You mentioned that Russ and the run game have been working in tandem. I think Russ is working because of how good the run game's going, not the other way around. This run game gets things started, and then Russ just happens to be lucky enough that his play style fits exactly into this Arthur Smith offense that wants to run the ball down your throat and then run a lot of play-action passing. So I think this run game is really the key. They're averaging almost 20 yards a game more than what they were last year. This run game is really doing what they need to do. They're pulling the linebackers down when they run those play-action passes, and Russ can throw those deep moon balls. So although I agree that Russ has been very, very good, I think the run game is the reason Russ has been good, not Russ is the reason the run game has been good.
I honestly, I can see where you're coming from with that, but with me, I feel like Russ is the one who's going to keep doing that for the rest of the year. I mean, credit to where credit is due. Our running backs have been doing tremendous this year, despite like a few games, like Najee had a few rough games, but other than that, I think that the fact that Russell Wilson's good at, the play action, I feel like that really does help, our run game.
And I just think my view of it is almost a combined view of you guys both, where it's the emerging run game is because of Arthur Smith. The quarterback is also performing at a very high level, which put together, those are all people that weren't here last year. When you have Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada that were there last year, obviously things weren't looking as great. So this year, you have Russ, you have Fields, you have Arthur Smith. You also have a couple new pieces on the offensive line with Zach Frazier. Mm-hmm. You also have a receiver now, Van Jefferson. We also brought in Mike Williams. And so far, I think just all the new faces have contributed to why the Steelers have been so good this year.
And Josh, and I also find that to be interesting as well, but I feel like Russell Wilson's his impact is being felt throughout the team. I mean, GP is flourishing. George Pickens is looking great. He's looking like a solidified number 1 wide receiver right now, thanks to his play.
Yeah, I think everyone has always known that George Pickens has the talent to be like a number 1 wide receiver, top 10 guy in the league, maybe even better than that, but we've just never been able to see it simply because of how bad the quarterback play has been throughout George Pickens' entire career. Now that we're seeing someone that can fit his game, especially with how Russ likes to throw those deep balls and George Pickens' specialty being a deep ball receiver, he finally works in tandem with his quarterback instead of almost having to fight through an awful quarterback. I think we're really going to see George Pickens continue to flourish in this offense, and that can be something big that carries the Steelers through the rest of the season.
Well, it's clear that they are playing well, and it's just whether or not they will keep it consistent going into a tough schedule. Moving on from the gridiron to the ice for a topic no one here is really excited for, the Penguins suffered another heavy defeat Monday night, losing 7-1 to the Dallas Stars, 6 of those goals coming in the first period. Now, Amir, instead of phrasing the question as what's wrong or is this the end, because I think it's abundantly clear that it is the end, how bad of an ending is it for the Sidney Crosby era in Pittsburgh?
I think it's honestly disgusting, if you ask me. Sidney Crosby has put his he's put his life and soul into this team, into this city, just to get treated like this. And I partially blame Ron Hextall for that. Hextall was awful. Probably one of the worst GMs I've seen in hockey. And to be quite honest, I just became a hockey fan within the last 7 years. I was a Penguins bandwagon, I'll admit it. But it was just awful. The beginning of the end started with Ron Hextall. He was not able to make good trades. He had terrible decisions for 2 straight years. He should have been gone after his first year. He kept Jeff Carter around, which was terrible, a terrible idea. They never improved goaltending, which is kind of ironic because Ron Hextall was a goaltender with the Philadelphia Flyers. And my first red flag is, why would you hire a former Flyer to be a Pittsburgh Penguins general manager? I think that's just disgusting how it is in general. But one thing that I can give credit to for Dubas is keeping the core together, but you got to do something. You got to do something to kind of make sure this team can get to the playoffs, get to the next step, but I don't see it happening. It's going to get worse before it gets better, so that's kind of where I'm heading with that.
See, Amir, I actually really disagree with you. You said you're going to give Dubas credit for keeping the core together. I completely disagree. This is what happens when you let nostalgia run a team instead of trying to run a team to win. The core 3 are 37, 38, and 37. They are too old at this point to be – I'm not saying they can't be impact players, but it's not at least something you want to bank on at this day and age. And they've been old for a while at this point. They didn't magically wake up and were 38 one day. They've been getting old for a while, and the decisions that the team has made with a total lack of preparation in terms of what they need to do to move forward has been disgusting. They haven't been able to do anything because they're too worried about upsetting the fans. Everyone hated it when the Pirates did it, but credit to the Pirates. They traded Andrew McCutchen whenever it looked like he was done. The Penguins have done nothing to make a move for the future, and we're starting to see the results of that now.
And I actually might go back to Jim Rutherford days. He did nothing to solidify the core of young players since he was GM. And I feel like that's just been a problem each GM has just been handing down to the next. Rutherford did it to Hextall. Hextall did it to Dubas. I feel like there's no real solid core that we have for the Penguins. The Penguins, they have nobody.
No, and it's
I can't even name anybody.
It certainly doesn't get better either when you are trading your guys like Jake Genstall, who is like the youth of that, but you're retaining guys like Chris Letang and you're giving them the massive contracts. And now with the trade yesterday of Lars Ellers, I mean, that is signs. I mean, Lars Ellers is a veteran guy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, he is a guy who is performing. I mean, maybe not at the level you need him to, but certainly a guy that you shouldn't just ship for picks. But they're doing it now, so maybe now they're just entering the tank mode.
But I do find it to be interesting, too. I feel like I can agree with you when we're entering tank mode. I feel like as the season starts to progress, we're going to have a lot more of those kind of trades to get draft picks. If this team can get draft capital, that is going to be excellent. That'll set us up going into the next few years or so. But as of right now, the Penguins are not in a good spot.
Yeah, like you said, no signs of life as of now. And now to go back across the Clemente Bridge for our final topic before break. The MLB season came to a close last month with the Dodgers beating the Yankees in the World Series. While many teams might be getting their checkbooks out and blank checks on the table for Juan Soto, it should come as no surprise that the Pirates are going to have to settle for something a little less. Cam, what is the move the Pirates should make this offseason to finally get this roster over the hump and into the playoffs?
I think the only thing the Pirates can do to make sure they get into playoffs next year is make sure they blow up the other 29 franchises in the MLB because they're cursed. They're simply cursed. That being said, they need to go get an outfielder. Brian Reynolds can't play outfield anymore. Last year at the end of the season, he was working out at first base. It wouldn't shock me if that's an experiment they try and go with in the future because all of his defensive metrics last year were simply awful. And if you look at the farm, there's no one coming up to supplement the outfield. So they need to go sign one. Mark Canha's a guy. Max Kepler's a guy they could go get probably in their price range. Anthony Santander, if they ever really wanted to spend, but it's more likely we're going to get a one-more guy like Randall Grichuk or Jesse Winker walking into Pittsburgh. One of those moves, though, could really work. I think an outfielder really is the key. The other thing they might need, the other thing they're going to need is some relief pitching. But again, spending on relief pitching is kind of a crapshoot. Last year, the Pirates gave a bunch of money to Aroldis Chapman, and he was god-awful. So I don't know how much trust I have in Ben Cherington making the right move in free agency, but I can tell you that the answer in the outfield is not currently on the roster. Whether they sign or trade somebody, they need a different outfielder than what they currently have on the team.
Cam, I'd have to agree with you. I think this team does need an outfielder, as you saw by last year. Getting Brian De La Cruz at the deadline, I thought it was okay, but he did not perform up to a lot of fans' expectations. I was not really happy with how he performed. I mean, he didn't show up in the clutch, which I was kind of upset about. But another interesting thing that I would say the Pirates should do is get a first baseman. I don't think the Pirates have had a solid first baseman since they had Josh Bell. And it's been a rotation of platoon players. Colin Moran, you had, Phillip Evans at one time. I can keep naming all these random players you plugged in at first base, but one player I think that the Pirates should try to pursue, which could be a little pricey, is Christian Walker. I feel like he is a pretty big upgrade over what the Pirates have had in the last few years. I mean, I think he would be a huge upgrade over Rowdy Tellez, which I feel like anyone could. But the thing is, I'm not trying to hate on Rowdy. He had a kind of good end to the last year, but I think that'll be a kind of solid pickup. I would not mind Anthony Rizzo at all if he still has it, Ty France, or even bringing Josh Bell back. And I also think that we also need a lot of bullpen help.
And I agree. I was going to say, I mean, Cam, you mentioned that you want to go all in on it, but you don't really need an outfielder, or you don't really need a good goalie per se, keep it in the sports world, if you have an outstanding defense, and that starts with the pitcher. The ball starts in his hands. So Pete Fairbanks would be the guy I would go to. He's been a good relief pitcher with a 3.37 ERA in Kansas City, and he's just also cheap. He's probably not going to be that expensive. You'll retain him for 2 more years after that. I think going forward, you need to start filling that bullpen up, or else you could be in big, big trouble if you're the
Although I
Pirates.
agree with you that the Pirates do need a relief pitcher, I disagree with Pete Fairbanks simply for the fact that he's a righty. Colin Holderman is in there right now. David Bednar, although he didn't have a great year last year, he's not going anywhere. He's also a righty. They need some sort of lefty help, with Chapman being their main lefty last year, and he's gone now. So although I agree, definitely need a relief pitcher, I don't think Pete Fairbanks would be the answer.
Hey, don't forget about Ryoki Sasaki, the Japanese pitcher.
He's not coming here.
He's not coming here, but I'm just saying. Just saying.
All right, when we come back, we'll be talking all things NFL. Thank you to Cam and Amir for being here. We'll have new talent and new topics right here on Sports Talk in the Burgh.
When I first saw Turtle, my heart was full. Now anything but lonely.
We had this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet,
We discover
they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure
Pure love.
love.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly and put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Worried about your friend, but don't know how to reach out?
You could say, how are you, or get a fake tattoo. You could ask with an app if it works for you. You could chat with them in VR, it's so good. If you think you should check in, yeah, you should. Whatever gets you talking.
Reach out to a friend about their mental health.
Whatever gets you talking.
Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org.
Welcome back to Sports Talk in the Burgh. Joining me now is my fellow Steelers aficionado, Jordan Warwick, and a man whose takes are as cold as his photos, Joey Germasic. Welcome, guys. Now, let's talk some football. Staying on the theme of reigning Super Bowl champs in the past are the Kansas City Chiefs. They continued their undefeated run, now sitting at 9-0 this season. While wins are wins, the team has looked massively underwhelming on offense and only beat the Broncos on a miracle field goal block at the end of the game. Now, every Pittsburgh fan remembers the Steelers' 11-0 run to start their season a couple years ago, in which they ended 1-5 and lost in the first round at home to Cleveland. Jordan, will this dark magic run the Chiefs have pulled out so far suffer a similar fate as the Steelers, or will they go all the way?
Well, I don't think that they will suffer a similar fate as the Steelers for the simple fact that they have a guy named Patrick Mahomes, and I know he's not been playing his best football this year, but he is still Patrick Mahomes. He is still someone that can win them games. But I honestly do not know if this Chiefs team can make the Super Bowl. I am not super impressed with them this year. I'm not impressed with Mahomes, he's having the worst year of his career through 10 games. He has only 2,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, 9 picks. That is not what we expect from Patrick Mahomes at all, but they just keep finding a way with their dark magic, to keep finding a way to pull out and win these games. But I think teams like this, the Lions, the Bills, maybe the Ravens, and possibly the Steelers are better teams than them, and teams that can beat them in the postseason.
Yeah, more well-rounded too. Joey, what do you think?
Okay, I want to start off by what you said about the Ravens, Bills, and Steelers possibly being better than them. There's no way that those teams are better than them.
The Bills?
No, absolutely not. I think it's going to be the same story that Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are going to be guys that are going to choke in the playoffs when they come up and face the Chiefs. So, but I do think that they're on another Super Bowl run. I agree with you. They're not going to be at the same fate as the Steelers. I think that's probably going to be a one-time thing. And you're right, he hasn't been playing that well. 2,200 yards this season, almost 10 interceptions, which you're right, he's not playing that well. But the team, they're finding ways to win games. You know, they got the game-winning field goal block this past week. I think that they're not going to be. It's not going to be like a blowout like any teams the rest of the way. They got Steelers, Bills, and Texans. 4 of the last 8 teams that they have are 500 or below. So I think they're going to make another Super Bowl run, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as it has been the last couple of years. That's my take on it.
Well, I just think that it's not sustainable. I think like all the points you've pointed out with a lot of interceptions, kind of finding ways to win, like that's great and all, but like people have talked about the Steelers for years now, where they've been almost 9-8 teams, where they've been just finding ways to grind out wins against tougher opponents. I think you can look at that almost in the Chiefs' eyes as, yeah, they're getting a miracle block field goal. If that doesn't happen, all of a sudden that's a game they're losing, and then you're talking about, oh, are the Chiefs going to full-on collapse? So I think if a couple of things start going against them, which they easily could in football, I think we might be having a whole different conversation.
Yeah, and they are not winning these football games consistently. They only played 2 games this year where they have won by 2 or more possessions. So this team is not blowing teams out. They're winning by the skin of their teeth. I don't know if that's sustainable in the playoffs.
Nope, I don't think it will be either. Well, from the highs of Kansas City so far to the lows of Chicago, the Bears continued their dismal form with a pretty atrocious loss to the 3-7 Patriots Sunday afternoon. This resulted to offensive coordinator Shane Waldron being fired, and with many still calling for the head of coach Matt Eberflus. While many people are hopeful for what's to come on offense, the Jets have shown that an offensive shakeup doesn't necessarily make everything magically better. So, Joey, tell me, what's gone wrong in Chi-Town this year?
It's the quarterback, Caleb Williams. No one should be surprised that the Bills. What? No one should be surprised that the Bills are not the Bills. The Bears are not doing good. We saw it at USC. Sure, last year they had an 8-5 record, and he had great numbers, but they never won anything that meaningful. Yeah, sure, they won. They won a bowl game, huh?
They did have a defense at USC.
And their O-line wasn't anything spectacular, similar to the Bears.
Listen, Caleb Williams, you bring him into this league as what people thought as the closest thing to Mahomes, and Matt Eberflus decides that he
has a similar
play.
But he's not a player like
he's the closest prospect to Patrick Mahomes that the NFL has seen since Mahomes has came into the league. So you come into the league with a Patrick Mahomes as player, play style, whatever, and you try to make this player play conservatively. After the game that they had against Indianapolis, Caleb Williams threw a pick, and Matt Eberflus said that he has to play more conservatively. So you're limiting your young.
He's a rookie. He doesn't know all the ways of this league yet.
So you are limiting his play style, and you're limiting his potential. And the fact that they stuck with a defensive coach, a guy who over the last 3 years has a 14-29 record, over potentially getting somebody like a Jim Harbaugh or a Ben Johnson. They decided you have the number 1 overall pick, you have the number 9 overall pick, and you stick with the defensive guy who hasn't proved himself? Caleb Williams has not had the opportunity with a good coach.
He has the weapons, though.
Sure, he has the weapons.
He has the weapons.
Just because he's throwing to certain guys doesn't mean necessarily just because you have 3 guys who are proven, or not even really. I mean, Romo Dunze is also a rookie.
Yeah.
So you don't have proven pieces, I would say, other than DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, who's old. But I think the media is really just making this way harder than it has to be. I agree with what you're saying that he's a rookie quarterback, and I agree with what you're saying that it's a defensive-minded coach. But altogether, if you have the fans moaning there at every sign of struggle and saying, it's the Bears curse, it's the Bears curse, we can never get anything right, then it's going to just mount more and more pressure on your young
I
quarterback.
will agree with that. Yeah.
Expectations should not have been as high as they were.
He did
for
have
the
a little
Bears
too much
this
pressure
year.
on him. I'll agree with you.
The people that thought the Bears would somehow make the playoffs or do anything, I think that was way too much pressure to put on a young rookie quarterback coming in. Not everyone is a C.J. Stroud. Not everyone is a Jaden Daniels. They should not have ever had the expectation to be as good as people thought they were going to be.
Totally agree. They'll have to keep their sights set at a minimum for now. Well, there's been many up and down moments this NFL season, with players of all ages maybe showing signs that their future might not be in football. Young leaders like Anthony Richardson and, like we just talked about, Caleb Williams are tapping out of games and seem to be cell-shocked in the pressure, while veterans like Zach Martin and Aaron Rodgers are entering their twilights of their careers while being with horrible franchises. So, Jordan, starting with you, what big NFL player do you see putting down the pads and updating their LinkedIn the soonest?
I don't know if he's going to be updating his LinkedIn the soonest, because I don't think he's going to ever have to work again. After the $240 million contract that Dak Prescott got last year, man, he's horrible now. He stinks. The Cowboys are in such a bad position right now, but I don't feel bad for any of their fans. But Dak has undergone season-ending surgery. He played terrible this year. He only had about 1,900 yards, 11 touchdowns, eight picks. He had the second lowest completion rating of his entire career with 64.7, and had the lowest passer rating of his career with 86. This team doesn't have a lot of weapons for him to utilize. Yeah, they don't have a competent owner that can get him help. Their offensive line is falling apart, especially with Zach Martin probably going to leave after this year. I do not think Dak is going to not be the quarterback in Dallas soon, but I think he's going to be falling off a cliff.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think Tyreek Hill is more on that kind of trajectory. I mean, he's projected to have the fewest yards in his career right now with 462. Last time he had his lowest career mark was in 2019. He is on track for his fewest touchdowns this season. He has 2 right now, and only 60 targets so far. He himself as a player maybe not be awful right now, but I think the play of his quarterbacks in Miami are going to be the reason why he falls. No, he has Tua Tagovailoa, who's got probably a concussion or 2 away from retiring. And then the backups right now, they have Skylar Thompson and Tyler Huntley. Skylar Thompson having a 66% completion percentage and only 190 yards in 2 games. That's not going to help Tyreek to be back at whatever level he was with Kansas City. And then Tyler Huntley, a 22 QBR rating. He just doesn't have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes.
He needs the quarterback.
Yes.
And so that's why I think the jury is still out on a guy like him, because if he ends up going to a team with a competent quarterback and competent offense, then he could be successful.
I think he's going to stay in Miami, though, and I don't think the Dolphins are going to try to go
But
for anyone.
I think it's less on him and more on Miami as an organization and Mike McDaniel's system. The fact that they did not try to go and get a quality backup quarterback knowing Tua's injury history, and the fact that their offense cannot operate at all without Tua, it shows how limited they kind of are and how reliant they are on Tua. And I think that's not a thing that you should be faulting Tyreek for, but more Mike McDaniel.
Like we mentioned, the jury's still out. The guy I want to touch on, and I think we should close the case on, is Myles Garrett. Sure, I have bias, but my logic is simply behind the amount of time he has left in his career. He's on a bad team, obviously, and which also that team is not for what his value is, which is notably probably going to be a couple first-round picks, if not more. Then not a lot of teams are going to give them up for such a strong defensive player, even though it is Myles Garrett. And I think
but he's been on bad teams before with amazing numbers. Like he's going to have
and his numbers aren't great, and so he's regressing naturally. And so I just don't think he will be able to be traded, and I think his status is going to go down when his contract runs out. Moving on, we have to wrap here. When we come back, we're going to let our very own kid from Akron, Joey Dramasik, talk about all things Cavs when we come back here. So stay tuned for more on Sports Talk in the Burgh.
When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover their unique mix of all kinds of traits.
Where'd Wiley go? Where's Wiley? Ah, there she is. Paw?
Do you remember being an ancient wolf? Do you ever feel the call of the wild?
You're a renegade cop, and I'm a con woman with nothing to prove. But together, we could really solve this murder.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but all of them are pure love.
Welcome back to Sports Talk in the Burgh. Ever since LeBron left the Cleveland Cavaliers, it has been a bit of a stale state. But now, there might be some hope. Joey, why don't you tell us what's going on in the mistake by the lake?
Hello, everyone. My name's Joey, and I got something to say. A few shows back, I made a prediction about the Cavs being a top 2 team in the East this season, and some people did not agree with me. Well, look who's wrong now. The Cleveland Cavaliers are 12-0 with the best record in the NBA this season. Starting off hot isn't a fluke or false information. That's right, the Cavs are off to the 8th best start in league history, and doing this without LeBron James. So here are my 3 reasons why the Cavs are this hot and why they're the best team in the Eastern Conference. Let's start with number 3. Donovan Mitchell, Spida, has been doing his thing, leading the Cavs. But it's Evan Mobley and Darius Garland who are evolving. They're playing at an all-star level. In the past years, it's been Mobley and Garland need to step up. And yes, their past playoff performances have been underwhelming. But now, them boys are playing like all-stars. Mobley having 18 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists a game, while Darius Garland is scoring 20 points a game with 2 rebounds and 6.5 assists a game, is a key reason why the Cavs are 12-0. They are evolving, growing to the stars that they were promised to be coming out of college, and looking great next to Donovan Mitchell. If these two keep this up, it's going to be a scary matchup for teams against the Cavs this season. Okay, now let's go to number 2. The second reason why the Cavs are the best team in the East is because finally the supporting cast is playing adequate basketball. Thank you. The bench has fallen short in the playoffs in recent years, and it finally looks like there is light for them now. Karis LeVert is scoring 12 points a game. He's doing his thing. Ty Jerome, out of all the people in the league, is averaging 10 points off the bench. Sam Morrell is hitting much-needed shots for them in the second unit. Dean Wade has been up and down, which needs to be figured out, and I will say that I'm a little upset with Okoro's productivity this season, but the season is young, and I believe in Okoro. If this bench plays the way that they are right now, they will have a successful season. They will be the key reason why the Cavs will be this dominant. But last but not least, the number 1 main reason why the Cavs have been so successful is because the coach, Kenny Atkinson, the previous head coach for the Nets and assistant for the Warriors, has added a fast-paced offense to Cleveland and making other defenses look like fools. He is making this offense look like an entirely new team. Last year, the Cavs were 18th in the league for offensive efficiency, having a score of 115.2 points per 100 possessions. But this year, Atkinson has them at number 1 with a red-hot 121.7 points per 100 possessions this season. The team is more fluid this season, more alive this season, and not are they only looking good on offense, on the offensive side of the ball, but they're the 6th-ranked defensive rating team this season. Kenny Atkinson, a genius, has unlocked a new form for them this season. And oh man, it's going to be a fun year for this Cavs team, and why they are going to be the number 1 team in the East this season.
Listen, all I'm saying is, when is the last time a team won a championship without a superstar was Detroit in 2004. There's no one on this.
Without a superstar?
Yes, Donovan Mitchell is not a superstar. He's not a superstar.
Guys,
Guys,
we might have to save that for another time. That's all we have here. I'm Josh Woodman from Jordan, Joey, and everyone upstairs. That's all we have. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk in the Burgh.
Whoa! We gotta come back and.
You don't think Donovan Mitchell?